Hello, and welcome to the Left-Handed Bandit mobile paint party experience. Today's theme is going to be a princess. So, we're going to need a couple of different things. So, let's go over our materials. We're going to need a cup of water for this. We're going to need a napkin or a paper towel. We'll need two paintbrushes that should be included with your kit, such as a smaller paintbrush and a larger paintbrush or a foam brush. So your kit should have that. You should have a pre-plotted canvas. You should also have a plate of paint or a palette of paint. Mine's may look a little bit different from yours. We don't need too much paint for this. We have yellow, white, blue, purple, black, and red. So 6 different colors you should have in your kit. Aside from that, you may or may not have an easel, but the easel is very optional. You don't need it to complete the painting successfully. So if you don't have an easel, just lean your painting up against a few textbooks or books if you have any in the house, as well as different large bottles could work, such as sauce bottles, spaghetti jars, things of that nature. So just give that a try if you'd like. Otherwise, you can paint it with it flat on the table, and that'll work just fine as well. I'm going to begin by taking my foam brush first. I'm using my foam brush, and I'm going to dive right into my water and swoosh my brush in my water. I am not banging the brush to the bottom of the cup. I'm just lightly swooshing it around, getting it nice and wet, tapping that excess paint or water off of my cup and onto the edge. Then I'm going to both sides. Dab both sides of your paintbrush off on your paper towel. That's going to help get rid of the excess water as well. So I'm dabbing both sides of my paintbrush off on my paper towel. So I'm going to be starting with this foam brush first, and this is a fairly simple painting. We're going to paint through the figure. What I mean by painting through the figure is that we're going to pretend as if we're not even seeing the shape of this young princess just yet. We're going to work around the afro, around the crown. However, we're going to paint through the body. And we're going to use a series of colors. We're using acrylic paint today. Acrylic paint is very fast drying. It dries within 3 to 5 minutes. So when we do these steps, they're going to be very, very brief, very, very simple, only because this is a simple painting, and this paint needs to dry and blend while the paint is still wet. Or I should probably restate that and say that this paint needs to blend while still wet. You don't want it to dry before you blend it, otherwise you're going to have problems. So again, we're going to be blending it while it's still wet, so we're going to be moving fast. So with that being said, I'm going to start with the color, let's see, we're going to go lightest to darkest. Let's do yellow. So I'm taking just a touch of my yellow with my foam brush. And again, remember, we're painting through the body. We're painting around the crown and the afro. So I'm going to add about 6 or 8, I would say probably 8. I'm going to add 8 different streaks of paint on my canvas. So one, and again, well, I didn't mention it, these streaks are going to be going vertically, not horizontally, not diagonally, but up and down vertically. 8 vertical streaks of paint on your canvas in different areas, random areas. You do not have to do the same areas as me. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and don't worry about the figure on the canvas. We'll still be able to see through to her. 5, 6, let's go with 7, and I'm going kind of thick with this just because I don't want this paint to dry too fast on me. Now we got 8. 8 streaks of paint. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my canvas, and again, working through the body and around the crown and the afro. I'm probably going to actually add 1 more streak of yellow paint right here just to balance it out. And why not put a little bit more? So now I have 10 streaks. However, you don't have to add 10. If you already added 10, that's fine. But we just want a good amount of this background to be yellow, because that's going to be our shining color for this painting. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that paintbrush or that foam brush and swipe each side of your foam brush off on your paper towel. Now my paper towel is just out of frame, so I can't actually show you how I'm swiping it off, but you're just taking both sides and dragging it along your paper towel to get that excess paint off. We're not dipping it in water just yet. We're gonna go right to the next color. And the next color that we're gonna go to is going to be just a touch of red. So we want our colors to kind of blend together on our canvas and on our foam brush. We want to move a little bit fast because this paint will start drying up on us very soon. I'm going to choose about 6 to 8 layers or areas of red streaks. 2, same thing we did with the yellow. We're adding with the red now. 3, and we're going in a vertical swipe. 4, up and down. 5, they're gonna be nice short brush strokes up and down. 6, and I'm going to add maybe 7 and 8. So I'm jumping around the canvas, and actually I want to add a little bit in the middle. 9. So these are random brush strokes. You may have less than me, you may have more than me, but the key is to get a nice even amount of each color going. Now we got enough red going, so we're going to continue to follow suit by, again, wiping both sides of our paintbrush off on our paper towel. We are not dipping it in water just this minute. We're using this to help blend our colors much more easily. So we've wiped that excess paint both sides off on our paper towel and dragged it along. Now we're gonna switch over to the color, how about purple? Now purple is a little bit lighter than red, but they're so close that we can go ahead and get away with that. So I'm gonna choose more areas for this. And again, we're doing streaks up and down. 1 of purple, 2, I'm gonna do maybe 3, 4, and these streaks are gonna be a lot shorter as well because we're running out of some space. 5, 6, 7, 8, and we need a little at the top. How about 9 right here? So we're doing shorter and shorter brush strokes because we're starting to run out of space on our canvas, which is what we want. But we still need to add 2 more colors technically, but 1 more before we start to blend these. So now that you have your purple on, you're going to do the same exact thing, follow suit, wipe both sides, drag them on the paper towel, flip your paper towel inside out, grab another paper towel if you need to, and wipe that off. We're not putting it in water just yet. Get that excess paint off of your paintbrush onto your paper towel. And what we're going to do next is switch to blue. Now, usually when we mix red and purple together, we get blue. So that's why I had mentioned that the purple and the red are kind of interchangeable. You can do either or first. So now we got our blue, so it doesn't really matter. And we're gonna, again, find different areas in the middles of these other colors where we can get little hints of this blue showing through. At this point, it should be nice, short brush strokes, little dabs of paint, finding miscellaneous areas for that blue to kind of fit in and jump around that canvas. And I'm liking the way that's looking. Almost looking a bit festive, like a party. So before these paints start to dry, they're gonna start drying very, very soon, I'm going to take my sponge brush and now I'm going to dip it in water, swish it around, try not to bang it too hard to the bottom of your cup, just light swish. If you wanna bang it to the bottom just a little bit to get the paint out, if it's a little bit stubborn, that's fine. But I'm gonna tap it on the side of my cup. I'm gonna dab both sides off on my paper towel that's just off frame. Dab it on both sides. That's gonna help remove that excess water from the brush because we don't want that to drip down the canvas. And what I'm gonna do next is with this clean-ish sponge brush, I'm going to switch to my white paint. And while this paint is still hopefully wet, we're gonna take some white paint with our sponge brush and we're going to work all through these different colors by, in a vertical fashion, swiping these colors and blending them together. Now, what's really important to remember while we're doing this is that we're still painting through the body. We want to add enough paint in between to actually make these colors blend, but however, use a little bit of paint at a time because we want to make sure that we can still see that body when we're done so that we can go ahead and retrace it out. However, when we're working with his hair, it's okay to get a little bit of paint inside the afro and inside the crown. However, just be careful to try your best not to get it in there. So I'm going to start blending and I'm going to move a little bit fast. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to move this fast. It just means that I have a little bit more experience. So if you need to pause this video or fast forward or rewind this video at any point, that's the convenience of a mobile paint party experience. You can rewind it, pause it for as long as you'd like to get those instructions and those steps once again. So I'm going to quickly blend mine, but yours should look something like mine. Just remember, avoid the afro, avoid the crown, a little bit of paint at a time. up and down brush strokes. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this. I'm gonna hold my easel just so I can get that palette just a little bit more safe and stable. And I'm going up and down, adding just a little bit of white at a time. And those other colors are going to start blending together, but we don't want them to get too blended to make one new color. So it's important that every so many times that you blend that canvas, that you're wiping your paintbrush off on your paper towel. You don't have to dip it in water. Just wipe it off on your paper towel so that our colors aren't getting too mixed together. We want these colors to blend, but we don't want them to make one gigantic monotone. So notice that every few brush strokes, I'm coming off the canvas, I'm wiping the excess paint off of my paintbrush onto my paper towel because I want to avoid that excess buildup. And we can always go back and add touches later, but when we are working through this canvas, we want to try our best to work through it so that we don't have to go back too much, because once the background is dry, there's time for our foreground. And it's hard to do the foreground and the background at the very same time while keeping a nice clean blend of colors. So my paper towel is getting real dirty. I'm just simply going to flip it over a little bit and keep working. Paper towels have multiple sides. Every so many brush strokes, I'm going back. I'm adding a little bit more white while taking excess paint off of my paintbrush onto my paper towel. You should still be able to see a little bit of your figure. Now, if you cannot see your figure at all, that means you may be using too much paint. So when you're dusting that paintbrush, swiping it off in between these dabs of paint, it's important to swipe kind of hard, because when you swipe it hard, it's going to remove that extra paint from your paintbrush. So again, I'll say that again because that might help you out a lot. Every time you grab some more white paint, you are going to be wiping the excess off from your paintbrush onto your paper towel. It will help you immensely to swipe hard as you're wiping it off from the paper towel, because that is going to remove the excess paint from your brush. And then you can go back and then just lightly add those colors. Now, again, if you're using too much paint, it's going to start disappearing. I got a little bit heavy in here, a bit heavy-handed, but I can always make that out later once that paint dries up a little bit, and we'll figure out our path from there. But for now, I'm going to keep on blending in those colors. So even if you can't even see your princess's outline anymore, don't worry, I got you. We're going to plot her out at different points, and I'll show you how to do that after our break. So I got these colors getting nice and blended. I want to be able to see a mixture of the different colors and not just one monotone of new color mixed together from all those colors. A nice rainbow blend of those different color values is the goal. Going in an up and down brush stroke fashion. I'm going to pull this back just a little bit. I want to make sure you can see that. I'm still blending upwards and downwards. And the reason why we put so much yellow in it is because if we didn't put that yellow in there, then we would have lost a lot of that yellow color with these darker colors like the purples, the reds, and the blues. So the yellow needed to be oversaturated so that we wouldn't lose too much of it, because some of it was inevitably going to be gone, but still. And besides, when we do our crown later, our crown is going to be yellowish golden, so that'll take the center focus. Now notice that as I'm getting over in this tight area, it's getting hard to avoid my crown. It's getting hard to avoid my afro, but that's okay. Even if I get a little bit of paint in here, I can always see the outlines and come back later and paint over that when the paint's nice and dry. Another reason why it's important for us to let our paintings dry while we take a break. So in a few minutes, we will be taking a break, and we're going to be letting our painting dry for just a few. Acrylic paint dries within 3 to 5 minutes. So I would say a safe time to let your canvases dry is going to be about 10 to 12 minutes. 10 to 12 minutes, you should be good. If you need more than that, it's because you went a little heavy on the paint. It's no big deal. It's not the end of the world. You just need a little extra time for your canvases to dry. But you want to make sure those canvases are dry before we get into the second part of this video. So before we take our break, I'm going to just make sure that our paint is nice and smooth on our canvas. I'm gonna make sure I have a nice blend of paint that I like. It's important that you like your canvas. So even if your canvas doesn't look like your neighbors or your partners, whoever you're painting along with, it's okay. So I want to make sure it's to my liking. And for it to be to my liking, I want to just, it may be hard to see in this video, but along the canvas, there's some little gaps in between here and here where I can see the actual original white canvas. And I don't want that to show. I want my paint to be nice and smoothly blended. So I'm going to hold my foam brush or paintbrush in the middle. I'm going to smooth it up and down, going across the entire canvas now, and I'm smoothing it very, very lightly. That's the trick to this. Smooth it very, very lightly so that those colors will blend and cover that background noise that I'm talking about, but we also don't want to lose those blends that we've already created. So I am going up and down. I'm lightly, super, super lightly blending these colors together. Now I have a nice blend of colors, and if yours is a bit too dark, and mine is actually a bit too dark in some areas, what you can always do is come back in and add a couple of other colors to raise the vibrancy. However, don't go overboard because we'll start running into those monotones we talked about. Okay, so I'm gonna add a couple more strokes of white here and there. I think I'm gonna add a couple more strokes of blue, just one or two, because blue's a very powerful color. And you'll lose that quick. And plus with this yellow on our canvas, it'll turn green on us. And lastly, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna add just a tad bit more purple, just to make it pop just a little bit more. And I'm not adding a lot, I'm smoothing it in, up and down brush strokes. I can kind of still see the shape of my woman's body, my princess's body, I meant to say. And then, once it's to my liking, then I'm going to let it dry. So at this point, I'm liking my background, and once our foreground is added, I'll like it even more, I believe. But when it's to your liking, take a break, take your foam brush, throw it in water. We're gonna be done with that for now, unless you wanna add some more at the end. And we're gonna let our canvases dry for about 10 to 12 minutes. And once those are dry, we can go ahead and add the foreground. But again, remember, do not begin painting the foreground until that canvas background is completely dry. So we're gonna take a break, and I'll see you in video number 2.